Well, welcome back, and here I am today thinking about the incredible internships that Sunmark School offers for its students, and I'm delighted to welcome Caitlin here to speak to me.
Hello.
Not least because Caitlin was actually on the interview panel when I was appointed here as a principal, and she remarked to me just before we started filming, "So now you're interviewing me. Tables have turned." So that's great. Caitlin, welcome. Thank you very much for coming to talk to us. Your particular area of interest was in what? What kind of subjects was it that excited you, or what was your future job plan that you thought, I'd like an internship in that?
So I'm applying to uni for journalism and media. So of course I wanted to look for something like that. But in Dubai, there wasn't really anything here that I can go into for an internship since I'll be in England for the summer. So I had to look virtually to look for an internship or work experience kind of thing for
That's
course.
Great. So you had a virtual internship. This is really interesting for us all to hear about.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Just explain to me some of the mechanics behind a virtual internship.
Yeah, so what they do is they would do kind of a live video every day, it lasted 2 weeks. So I did 2 actually, so it lasted 4 weeks altogether for both of mine. One was on film and one was on journalism. And it was kind of live seminars is what they called them, and then they give you a question form to fill out at the end, or an activity almost. So it was just questions, activities, and you'd watch, and then you'd speak to people in the industry about their experiences in journalism and just answer questions based on what they said.
That's great. I mean, that's a really great summary. Well done. I can see you're going to be a great journalist. But so in reality, you're really acting as a researcher because of the virtual nature of it. You're having to perhaps be a bit more proactive in probing to get to the questions and understand something. So I suppose in a way that actually really played into the journalism aspect for you.
Yeah, it was actually quite useful in some ways because they were telling us key terms, and also since there was people from the industry, they were kind of telling us what it's really like. So we had to do storyboards, for example, for the film one. So that was kind of proactive. I was using pen and paper, not just on my laptop all day.
Great.
And I was also filming certain stuff. I was filming an opening sequence, for example, and then sending that in. And there was people giving you feedback for your work as well. So it was quite interactive, which was good.
That's really wonderful. I'm glad that your providers made such a good job for you. So just talk me through that feedback process, because the step that you're making on an internship is one that perhaps gets your heart beating for a moment, because you're not at school anymore.
Yeah.
And this is a workplace which may or may not be as encouraging and nurturing as school is. And so you feel as though there's a sense of judgment. So you're in the process of getting feedback. How did that feel? How did it feel? Can you compare and contrast for me the difference between getting feedback in an internship from a professional organisation, a place of work, as opposed to getting feedback on an essay that you produced in school? What was the contrast and difference for you?
It was a lot more serious, I think, because they were pointing out things that usually my teacher will be like, oh, it's fine, whatever, just leave that out. But they were like, oh, actually, that camera angle that you used wasn't quite right, with portraying a meaning or something in the opening sequence, for example. So I was like, oh, okay, my teacher never told that to me before, but it was they were giving quite critiques, proper critiques.
Okay, quite brutal.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay.
So how did that feel? What was your emotional journey like? So you're used to being in a school where a teacher, one of the main objectives of a teacher, of course, is to encourage and to empower and to build you up, and there's time to do that. Whereas in the workplace, perhaps you're on a fixed time point. You have to deliver by the end of work on Friday, and so it has to be to a certain standard. You can't return to it next week as you would in school.
Yeah.
So what was it like being on the end of that sort of quite brutal, come on, there's a job to be done, get to it, Caitlin, get it to that standard? How did that feel?
It was kind of a reality check, because usually I'm okay with deadlines, but then I can kind of convince my teacher to be just give me an extra day or something. But they were I think you couldn't get the certificate unless you handed it in at a certain time.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, okay. And then also it was kind of I don't know, like I felt like I wasn't doing as well as I should have been, but at the same time they were like, no, don't worry, you're doing amazing. This is like experience, like you're learning. And I was like, oh, okay, that's good. So they were quite supportive as well.
Great.
Like if I was like nervous about it, but they'd still tell me what I was doing wrong. And then I was like, okay, that's good. I can improve. Like it was helping me improve my skills.
I understand. I mean, you're clearly a very self-aware and reflective young adult. So I can see that would work well for you.
Yeah.
But just help me understand how a virtual internship works in terms of the physicality. I can see that if I were going on an internship into a new space, maybe an engineering company or something, I'm going into that space. It feels different from home, feels different from school.
Yeah.
Maybe the office layout is very different. But you're based at home. Did that in any sense interfere with the experience for you? That actually everything around you is home, you know, rather than necessarily a different workspace.
Yeah, well, it was hard because I was on holiday. I was back in England, so I was like, oh, I want to go out with my friends. I don't want to be sitting here doing this. But like, I think lockdown gave me kind of like the experience to like get down and just stay at home, avoid distractions or whatever.
Well, that's one silver lining from the lockdown, that you're able to do that. So you were able to cut out the distractions and still give yourself that genuine experience. That's really brilliant, and all congratulations for you. So in terms of experiences that you had or lessons that you learnt, if you had to redo the whole internship again, how would you do things differently? Is there anything that you would change?
I think I would change my commitment to it a bit, because even though I was like committed to completing it, at the same time I was just like not that, because it was online. I was just a bit like, is this really that important? Like, is it going to do anything for me in the future? So I was kind of like, with my final products, like I wasn't really changing what feedback they were giving me. I was just like changing, like tweaking it a tiny bit and then resubmitting it. So I wasn't really that committed to it, since it was like an online internship. I was kind of confused if it would be that effective for my future.
So did you discover at the end of it that it was effective, therefore if you could have the time again you'd be more committed to that?
Yeah.
I mean, just even sharing that, and thank you for being so honest and sharing that. Even that's really valuable for people that have a virtual internship, to say, no, this makes a difference.
Yeah.
And so approach it in that particular way at the first hand is really important.
Yeah.
Well, look, you obviously did make a great success and you learnt a lot, and I have no doubt at all that you're going to be an excellent journalist.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for sharing it all, and congratulations on completing your internship.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.